And thanks for joining us once again on PM Express on a day when the Finance Ministry once again extended the debt exchange program and offered its final offer. Indeed, we are looking at the fundamental question everybody's asking tonight: do we have a deal now, or we don't have a deal? That's exactly what we're going to get into tonight. Let's go through this because there's a lot to get through for you. There's a lot of clarity we want to bring to you tonight. And I know there are millions of you, bondholders, institutional bondholders, individual bondholders who want some clarity, particularly individual bondholders, 1.3 million. And so many of you are joining, trying to get some understanding what really is happening. Are you being exempted or are you not? Do you have a deal or don't you have a deal? And what is this real final offer on the table? Here is the final offer the Finance Ministry is making. The deadline has been extended now to the 7th of February, 2023. Individuals are now free. And let me make this very clear. This is the very first time in an official government communication on the debt exchange program that the Finance Ministry, the government, is saying that you are free not to participate. So that's a key point. Secondly, the Finance Ministry, however, makes the point that if you choose not to participate, your old bonds will have limited tradability. What does that mean? Stay with us. We'll explain it. We're bringing on board tonight the former boss of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Dr. Edouard Nanientri, who will help us understand what this is. He himself leads the Pensioners Individual Bondholders Forum, so he understands it. He's a giant in the industry. He will help us understand what this is when he says your bonds will have limited tradability. Then also, final discussions ongoing with organized labor and pension fund trustees. Now, this for me was a major head scratcher when I read that document. Why? Because the pensioners, the pension fund trustees, and the organized labor, they were explicitly exempted. There was a press conference, we did it on the show, by the Finance Minister, by the Labor Minister, by the TUC boss, and a whole host of other representatives from organized labor. They sat in front of the cameras and told the world they've been exempted. Today, in a new offer that has been put before the country, the Finance Ministry, the government says they want to engage them. Engage them for what? If you've exempted them, why are you engaging them? We will get you some clarity. We'll be speaking to Thomas Kwesi Esso. He is the Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Corporate Trustees of Ghana. He needs to give us some clarity. He represents the pension funds. What is happening here? Why are they being called back to engage? We'll get that clarity for you tonight. Also, in terms of the key terms, of this particular offer that has been put forth tonight, pay attention to this. If you are below 59 years, you get 10% coupon. And now your bonds will mature a maximum of 5 years. Previously, under the previous offer, you were getting zero coupon in this year, 5% next year, an average of 10% for the next 12 years. In fact, because they've divided into 12, right? Now, you get 10% this year, 10% throughout, but also your maturity is a maximum of 5 years. That is if you are below 59 years of age. If you are a retiree, that is specifically if you are above 59 years of age, you get 15% coupon throughout, including this year, and then your maximum maturity is 5 years. Again, we need to get some clarity. I mean, what's it informing this disparity in offering those above 59, those below 59, 10% and 50%. We'll get to that clarity. Now, we know now that the deadlines have been a lot. There have been 4 deadlines, all missed, all extended. Well, this appears to be the final one. We'll see, because 7th of February, the truth we will know for sure, right? First deadline was 19th of December. They didn't meet it. Now the new one is the February 7, 2023. Now, the key things that we also want to stress here to know, the total debt as of the budget presentation, it is very key because we're trying to understand that there's a lot of moving parts, even as government try to still, restructure our debt. The debt isn't standing still. The debt is moving, right? The debt action program isn't moving with it. That is why this is important. Because we know, right, if you look at the budget, the total debt we're told was 467.4 billion, okay? But if you look at the debt as at November 2022, it's jumped to 575.7 billion, 93% of GDP. And if you consider that, and this is according to the Bank of Ghana, by the way, the Bank of Ghana's own numbers, the latest numbers, telling us this. That is 93.5% of GDP. Addition of 108 billion cedis in just 2 months from when the budget was read. So I'm making the point, the debt that is being trying to be restructured is not standing still. The debt is moving, right? So does that change the ultimate goal of still bringing down the debt to knocking off 137 billion cedis? We don't know, but we did some calculations ourselves, trying to see if this BOG calculation of debt to GDP ratio holds since the debt is moving. We found something completely different. We found that if you do the 575.7 billion, a percentage of GDP, you won't get 53.5. We found you get 123.6% to GDP, right? That's what we found. We need clarity on that because it's hard numbers as far as that is concerned. And then we have a few institutions that have an agreement. And so you see red is exempted, right? Green is agreement reached, and yellow is promise of exemption. So pension funds exempted. That is, as of before tonight, they were exempted. But their name has been brought back into the conversation. Why? We'll get clarity. If you go to the bankers, the banks, the insurance association, then the security industry, all of them have an agreement in place. So they are closed, they're done. They are willing to join. The only thing that remains is they need to get administrative processes sorted out so they can join, right? But then the key big elephant in the room is individual bondholders. There's a promise of exemption, so to speak, and that's where the real controversy is. If the finance minister says for the first time, affirming that you are allowed not to join, is that an exemption in another word or in another phrase? We'll get clarity on this very important matter that we need to offer clarity to many of the bondholders out there. Now, the expectation, as you know, is that the government was hoping to restructure a total of 137 billion. Under the current revised debt restructuring, if you do the computations, the Ministry of Finance, etc., right, with the 80% subscription rate, that doesn't hit 137 billion. It only comes down to 132. Somebody needs to bridge that gap. How? Government has been told by the Individual Bondholders Forum that cut expenditure. They gave them 80 billion plus cedis, right, that they can cut to make up for that. So that's way enough to make up for this. And the individual bondholders, if you listen to the Individual Bondholders Forum, they make up some 15.5 billion, right? And if you look at the computation, they're really not needed. Once you get the banks, once you get the insurance, once you get the securities, you don't need individual bondholders because you are hitting way over 88%, right? Even if you don't have them participating. So why is government still bent and determined to get them involved in this conversation? Joining me right now, do we have Mr. Esso on the line? Oh, great. I want to start and get some quick clarity from the executive director of the Chamber of Corporate Trustees, who of course they represent the pension funds. Is Thomas Kwesi Esso, is executive secretary of the Chamber of Corporate Trustees Ghana, and he joins us on the line very quickly. Before I come back from the break and then deal with the other individual, I invited him for some clarity. Thomas, thanks for your time here on PM Express. Please unmute for me.
Yeah, good evening, Evans. And then good evening to Professor Bokin. Good evening to my former Director General of SEC, Dr. Edu Ananientri, and a colleague at ICAG. So please, good evening to everyone this evening.
Please offer the clarity. You've been brought back into this statement that was issued.
So
what is happening here? Why have you been mentioned again?
So thank you very much, Evans, for asking. I think a reference was made to the MOU that was signed on 22nd December between organized labor and the Ministry of Finance. And then if you read the MOU carefully, it has 2 bullet points. The first bullet point stated the total exemptions of pension fund from the debt exchange program. And the second bullet point also stated that government and organized labor and association will work together to, can I just refer to it? So government and organized labor associations shall, however, work together to explore mutually beneficial options within their sustainability limits and to also promote macroeconomic stability and economic recovery. So, Evans, what we are trying to do now is that we as industry and then with Ministry of Organized Labor, we have also realized that if we don't now start looking at other situations, perhaps this debt exchange program, even though we've been exempted, would have, if it's passed, and then our bonds that we are holding that are being exempted, we are also looking at situations where those bonds will not become very illiquid or in our hands. Those bonds will not become untradeable on the secondary market. And therefore, we need also to work with governments to ensure that even though we are exempted, we still achieve the liquidity status of our bonds. We still find ways of trading those bonds on the secondary market so that we could be holding the bonds in our hands, but even though we be exempted, it will not become just a paper in our hands. And therefore, that is the solutions that organized labor with the pensions chamber are trying to find with the government of, the Ministry of Finance. Remember that when this debt exchange program ends, in the form that have been proposed by government, the new bonds, or that we are calling the current bonds that will be issued, the 12 bonds, they are those that will be more active and traded on the secondary market. Now, what happens to the bonds that we are holding? So that is the solutions we are trying to find with government, so that those bonds doesn't become illiquid or just a paper in our hands, and then those bonds also doesn't become untradeable on the stock market. So that is the solution organized labor plus the pensions chamber are trying to find with the Ministry of Finance.
This is not an invitation of a sort for you to find a way to still participate in the debt exchange program.
So, Ivan, let me take this opportunity and then communicate to all pension fund schemes that the exemption as per the MOU on 22nd December holds. No pension fund schemes will participate in the domestic debt exchange program, as has been proposed by the government and as has been agreed with the various financial sectors. So pension fund is exempted. We are not participating in the domestic exchange program. What we are trying to do is to find a solution with government so that our bonds will still remain liquid and will still remain tradable.
Okay, and the finance ministry in this letter tonight make the point that if your bonds are not part of the new ones, the challenge you have is limited tradability. That's what you're trying to resolve in these conversations you're about to have with the finance ministry.
Very well, Ivan. So that is exactly what we are trying to resolve with the Ministry of Finance in this debt exchange program, so that our bonds doesn't become just a mere paper in our hands that we cannot do anything with. So that is the solution we are trying to find.
And very final on this, but if the finance minister had said, both in this statement that you are free not to participate, which really is an exemption, just like yours, but then has also said subsequently to Graphic and others that there'll be no punitive sanctions for you, right? Why must there be a conversation? I mean, your bond, you hold it. You will still enjoy your original coupons, and you should be able to trade with it. Although it's limited, it's buyer and seller. It's the market that will determine that. Why is there a need to have a conversation still on that when those issues, the market will sort itself out there?
So thank you very much, Ivan. So you realize that if assume that every bondholder, apart from the pension funds, participate in the domestic exchange program, then those bondholders who have participated in the domestic exchange program will have 2 new bonds, 12 new bonds. So that's what it's going to do, have 12 new bonds. So the various bonds that we have, which I think cumulatively is getting to about 60 or more bonds, those bonds will be held by just pension fund schemes. So, I mean, it will be held by just pension fund schemes. So now, if the pension fund schemes are the only one holding all those bonds, that means that what is going to happen is that then we should be trading among ourselves. Now, you are not also too sure whether the CSD platform will be made available for that kind of trading, because now government says that these are the bonds that are currently in issue from him. And therefore, with all these technicalities that we have identified, I mean, whether it will be tradable, whether we still have our liquidity, whether our coupons be paid, whether maturity, when it's mature, we are going to get our money. Because of all these issues, technical issues that surround our bonds, because we've been exempted, that is why we need to find a solution with that, with the Ministry of Finance, so that our bonds does not become just a paper in our hands.
Fantastic. Thank you for that clarity. Thomas Kwesieso, Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Corporate Trustees. He'll take leave of us right now. When I return, I'm going to be speaking to Senor Hosi, Martin Kpebu, Dr. Eduanani Entry, and Professor Bokwe. Thanks for staying with us. As I said earlier, we have Dr. Eduanani Entry, a former Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. He leads the Individual Pensioners Bondholders Association. Also joining us is Martin Kpebu. He's a lawyer, but also leads the Individual Bondholders Association of Ghana. In the studio with me is Senor Hosi, who is a convener of the Individual Bondholders Forum. Professor Bokwe is a professor of finance at the University of Ghana, UGBS as well. Thank you all for joining us. I want to start with you, Dr. Eduanani Entry, very first. I get the impression that the offer on the table tonight is one that you still do not accept. Am I right?
Yes. It doesn't amount to exemption. That's why we are not accepting.
Okay. And please clarify for me, when you say exemption, what form do you want that to manifest? Is it an MOU with you? Is it a letter? Is it a verbal commitment? What would qualify as an exemption?
Well, as for the qualification for exemption, it can take many forms. Either the ministry writes or put it in the invitation that these kinds of bonds that are being held by pensioners are exempted from this exchange. So they can be all manner of all forms that we could get. Once you say you have accepted S or accepted the bonds, in the form of communicating or documenting, it is not an issue.
Okay. In that communication that you're looking for, you want it to be binding, do you know?
Yeah, see, I always say that for me as a market person, I know the difference between I have accepted you and somebody say I'm opting out of the exchange. If you exempt me, you have said those bonds will continue to go as it is going on your own. So you are prepared to handle it differently. It doesn't become part of the bonds you are exchanging. If I go out and say I'm not complying or I'm not accepting the bond, my bond is still part of that which was being exchanged, except that I didn't go in for the exchange. So those are the two, and these implications are different.
Okay, and you explained to me when we spoke to you on radio that in one case, in one case of the explicit exemption, there's a guarantee that you'll be paid when the coupons fall due and you'll be paid when it's matured. In another case, you run the risk of default. That's where the difference is.
Yes, because if you say I have exempted you, it's like you are a different package. I'm going to do everything that I'm doing with you under the old bond. I have not told you I may not be able to service the coupon and the principal. That's the meaning. Once you are out, that's whatever government is saying doesn't concern you. because yours is not parked. The people who are parked are the bonds that government is saying, I may not be able to handle this. And that is why I'm exchanging it for a new one. So if you are exempted, you are out of that pool. The rest in that pool, government has said, I may not be able, it's likely I may not be able to handle the coupon and the principal. That is why I'm restructuring it. So that's the big difference between exempted and you not opting for the bonds, the bonds exchange.
But the finance minister has given a further assurance, as you know, publicly and also in the meetings with individual bondholders that there will be no punitive action taken against you if you decide not to join, which means he's committing to honor the obligation when it falls due.
No, if they say no punitive, that doesn't mean he's not going to pay. Punitive, nobody will sanction you. Why didn't you bring your bond or that kind of thing? But it is government's ability. As I said, the creditor cannot come and say, I won't pay when it is due. No creditor can do that. The creditor will always say, yes, I will pay. But that is not foolproof until the maturity or the principal comes and he is hit with paying. That is where you will know whether he is able to pay or is not able to pay. But just saying that I will pay, that was from day one. You have said you will pay. If you are issuing bonds, you have promised from day one that you will pay coupons and maturity. That is the rule about issuing bonds. So you don't even need somebody to again come and assure you that I'll pay. That assurance from day one is there until interest, coupon, and maturity has finally been paid. It's just reassuring you, fine. But that doesn't, the whole thing is that if it gets to the term of payment and the person has even said, I will pay, and it gets there, so as a result of some challenges that I'm facing, some cash flow problems that I'm facing, I will not be able to do that. You don't say because he promised I'll pay, he will by all means make money available to pay. So that is a challenge.
Okay. Martin Kpebu, there's a line in the statement issued tonight by the finance minister, an affirmation that all individual bondholders are free not to participate. Isn't that a commitment by the finance minister to you that members, individual bondholders, can self-exempt if they choose to?
Absolutely, Evans. Absolutely. And so if you add that statement about self-exempting individual, that's individual bondholders self-exempting, you also referred to earlier the statement by the finance minister that government would honor its obligations. Yeah, so Evans, though I get the distinction Dr. His drawing, practically for us now, this is good. It's good because, you see, Evans, we are not just looking at government saying, like what he says, he's talking about the risk. Yes, every bond naturally will come with a risk, okay? The ability of the government to pay. If something were to go bad, something untoward were to happen, there will be challenges. But the good thing is that this time, you see, the government is run in such a manner that at least there's as much transparency in this particular respect. Simply the budget, Evans, just cut to the chase. I'm talking about the budget and government revenue. So Evans, where is government going to pass and say that every day that we buy stuff that attract VAT and 2.5 goes to the this and that bonds, as long as we buy stuff every day, then government will come and say, oh yes, though you buy stuff every day, you are paying VAT, I'm going to default on the Dachi bond. Then number two, every day we buy fuel, then government will come and say, no, I'm going to default on the ESLA bonds. No, so practically it's the same. Then number three, too, Evans, don't forget, the budget, we are going to spend totally about 227 billion. 227 billion, that's the total under the budget. We've shown where government can cut. So are we going to sit here as Ghanaians and watch government spend more? You see this budget, under this budget, we're going to spend more than even 2022. And that government will be spending on capital projects every day and all the other stuff. And yet when it comes to bondholders, government will say, I don't have money. No, for now, it sounds a bit theoretical. If it were that, government could hide the revenues. If government could hide these revenues, like some private people, you can take your assets, go hide somewhere, and even a private investigator can't find. Then that's where the risk will be bigger that if government says, I don't have money, you are in trouble. But this one, we see the revenue. We see the revenue and we see the expenditure. And so if you look at it, these bonds, look, every facet of our society, everybody is involved. So don't forget that even the MPP has issued a statement that the finance minister should pay. Everybody, Christian Council, Catholic Bishops Conference, everywhere. So for me, I think that the assurance is good. Wait, and don't be surprised. At the end of the program, he may well come out and even state the exemption. But for now, it's good. Let's carry on.
Senor?
I honestly don't know what the fuss is about. I don't agree with Dr. Anani. There's no opt-out. Because now somebody's not bringing you an offer. He wants you to rather opt in. So by default, you're already out. I want you to please take this instead of what I already gave you. If it works for you, please come. I need help. It's an opt-in, it's not an opt-out. Opt-out, it means you're already in and you're now finding a way to get out. The whole thing about the word exempt, I don't even know who brought this whole thing together. It was because, you see, in the memorandum, we're talking about the eligible parties to this particular, to the memorandum. So it was listing the people who are eligible. So if you said you're eligible, it means that you are somebody they can talk to if it works for you. I think that we couldn't have had a better statement than what we had today. And in case people have forgotten, let's read this thing very, very well. It says that, which part is it? It says that we are free. Clearly, it says that you are free to...
That's point 3A.
Point 3.
Should I read it?
Yeah, please. An affirmation that all individual bond holders are free to participate.
And let's make a note. This is the first time in any official communication
Yes, that he has said that. Are
that.
free not to participate. Let me correct it. He didn't talk about banks. He didn't talk about insurance.
He didn't talk about even the Securities
He
Association.
didn't talk about anybody.
Yeah.
It's only individual bondholders. So I don't know what the perturbation, the threat whatsoever. I don't think you would have found anything better than this. So the minister has given you clear commitment that he has a contract with you. He's going to honor the contract. He made an offer for you to come into a new contract if it works for you. If you don't, no problem. I will still pay. He has given you, if you want to use the exempt for your world, for you to be happy in life, then the minister is just telling you that you can self-exempt. That is what you have been granted. And he has reaffirmed it. So I don't know what the perturbation is. There's no reason to be perturbed. You know, on Friday, the minister was clear. Look, for individuals, if you don't honor it, if you don't participate, I will pay. I will also not do anything to punish you. No, I won't. You have my word on that. But before that, we were already aware of our rights under the law and under the existing contracts with the minister. That one, he can't punish us. 2, he has to honor his obligation. 3, he can honor his obligations. So he just went to a meeting.
So he has the means to.
He has the man.
Because that's the fear of an entry, that he may get there and he may not have the ability to pay.
The only problem the minister had, and I want to think that he, from his own opinion, he was being genuine about his concerns. Very genuine. That what happens if somebody wants to discount on the market? These papers may not be so tradable because there'll be few than the new bonds. So you may create problems for some people. So maybe I should create an opportunity for others to also join the new party if they like. So, well, I hear you, Mr. Minister. We too, from our technical perspective, we have thought about it, and we don't think it will be a problem.
To sell or to trade.
One, some people just
to
want
buy
to
and
hold
sell.
it to 10.
Yeah.
2, considering the legal value of the old bonds compared to the new bonds, and the economic value of the old bonds compared, it makes the old bonds even more superior. You become the Miss Ghana in the town, every man with some cash wants you to be his wife, not side chick. Side chick will try and go, but this one, you are too hot. People want to have you to keep. So we don't think it will be a problem when anybody wants to, but it's a matter of perspective. So he has created a room for people to decide to come in or stay out. Where we sit, we are yet to see an info memo.
Yeah.
For us to be able to give you a technical analysis like we did the last time, that this deal means you are losing 88% or 77% or 50%, subject to which kind of discount rate you use. All right? We want to see the whole info memo. We are yet to see the legal construct. If it's the old one, of course, the new one has a better option for you as an individual because you have some rights you can enforce. With the new bonds, those legal rights you can't enforce. Then we also look at the rates for every different one because the minister has said pensioners have a certain volume. We also have general people also having, people who are non-pensioners also have a different coupon. We have to analyze both and give people honest advice. But we are not in a full position till we see the info memoranda. I think it may come
Thursday.
On Thursday.
Thursday,
so
2nd February.
So our message to all our members,
That individual bondholders. Yeah.
do not fret. You've actually been given the best message you could wish for. Those who can't sleep, it's time to sleep. Take a glass of wine and sleep well. Dream any dream you want to dream. On Thursday, we'll come and give you more information. Till then, don't waste your time, worry yourself about sign or no sign. There's nothing to sign. There's nothing on the table to sign. On Thursday, when it comes, we'll run the analysis and we'll give you the advice.
Okay.
But always remember that what you have been offered right now is an option clearly, unequivocal, for you not to sign. And nothing would happen to you.
Okay.
If it's exemption you want to hear, now you are being told you can self-exempt as an individual. There's a reason why the minister did not say banks. He didn't say insurance. He said individual bondholders.
Let me read it again before I go to Prof. An affirmation that all individual bondholders.
Please repeat that part. That's the part I want to hear.
An affirmation.
Thank you.
That all individual bondholders are free not to participate. Let me bring in Professor Bokwe. And I know Prof will begin by greeting all individual bondholders because he said...
I've received your greetings, Prof.
Prof, you are the neutral one here. You have no horse in the race. You don't have a bond, so you're fine. So give me your honest... So you are the guy in the middle who can tell us what is the best deal here. What's the best deal? This deal or the one that the finance minister is offering 10% now?
Good evening, Evans, and then your colleague, individual bondholders.
So I'm a bondholder. Should I take this or I should keep my bonds?
I would prefer that individual bondholders will still hold on and ask for better terms, right? Because you see, the debt restructuring we are undertaking is what we call a preemptive debt restructuring. So in other words, the default actually hasn't taken place.
No default.
Okay. So this is an anticipation of something, and we don't want that to happen. So we call that one preemptive debt restructuring. Now, typically in the literature, the preemptive debt restructuring doesn't take that long. It's a bit different from where the default has actually taken place. Okay. So the way some people are interpreting this whole thing that, okay, you don't need to participate, the government won't default and all of that. No, typically, if you look at the framework that the 2023 budget, that interest on all government securities are fully provided for as approved by Parliament and the rest of them. And even with the gains that the minister has made so far in terms of those financial institutions that have...
the banks, insurance, and the Securities Association.
Yeah. If we take that, and do some level of expenditure-based fiscal adjustment. It squares up. Okay. So I'm struggling to understand why, as a country, we are taking ourselves through this stress. Okay. And why there is so much over concentration on creditors taking a deeper haircut. Because in the framework, you have three things you are looking at in restoring debt sustainability: fiscal adjustment, structural, and debt restructuring. Okay. Now, the reason I sympathize with individual bondholders is that if you look at the trajectory, Evans, we can decide as a country today and say that let's forgive government, let's give everything to them. Let the debt to GDP ratio come to about 30% of GDP. Evans, less than 10 years, we'll be here.
Oh, that's too far. 2 years.
We will be here. And for me, Evans, and it's good that I don't have even a CD in bonds. So I'm looking at it from a perspective where we can engage and restructure something that comes along with structural reform, fiscal adjustment, that gives sustainability.
Wow.
Now, if you look at where we find ourselves, and what I'm saying, Evans, it doesn't apply to only this government. Look, whether it's NDC, MPP, when we completed HAPEC 2004 and the Multilateral Debt Relief Initiative in 2006, Evans, our debt to GDP ratio came down to less than 30%, about 26%, end of 2006. Evans, but this is where we are today.
Mm-hmm.
Between 2006 and 2022, effectively, we've had a taste of these two main political parties. We've seen their actions that manifest explicitly in debt formation. So this gives us like a good crisis where we can restructure things. And it will not only be binding for the MPP that is in power, but for the foreseeable future. And I fear we are missing the point. Okay? We are missing the point. Look, and this is, there can't be any better way of describing this situation where the borrower is rather asking the lender to adjust his lifestyle for the borrower to be able to pay. When is the borrower's lifestyle that has caused this problem? Okay, it doesn't sit well. It doesn't sit well. So, and then beyond that, you see, I'm even concerned, even with the financial institutions that have signed under the Third Amendment and the rest of them, and the impact.
Yeah. Yesterday, the BOG governor, for the first time, admitted they've done a latest assessment, and they found that the current challenges in the debt exchange program is quoting him, increased pressure on liquidity and solvency of these banks. So he's worried.
And Evans, and that is what I've said before, I have a lot of respect for those at Bank of Ghana. And I am just surprised that, and I'm sure the story will be told one day, of how regulators teamed up with politicians over champagne and messed up Ghana's financial sector.
I agree.
The story will be told one day.
I agree.
And I feel sorry for the role that regulators have played in coercing, essentially, these participating financial institutions. Evans, why are we concerned? Building institutions that should act as checks and balances.
Independent, though.
The regulators are there to protect the sector they regulate. Okay? It is this kind of attitude and posture, so accommodating to our fiscal slippages, that has brought us here. And is the reason why, with all the knowledge and the technical insight of the people at Bank of Ghana, monetary policy is being pursued as subordinate to fiscal policy rather than it being complementary. I am sorry. We have to say it. We can't say it in any other way. When you are more diplomatic about it, then you are talking about something else. Evans.
That's right.
Okay.
So
Prof, bottom line, from everything you've said, I should hold on to my new bonds because the man who owes me hasn't made any effort to adjust his own lifestyle.
I will also join in asking individual bondholders not to sign up. I am not against the state. I am not anti-republic, okay? But I believe that there is considerable room where we can look at this triangle in a way that doesn't overburden one aspect of the triangle, okay? And that would also not be sustainable. Okay, you can apply all the haircut on creditors today. The next time your hair grows, the politicians will come back again. You have a barber in town who says that everybody else must have a haircut.
Apart from himself.
Apart from himself.
Well, Prof,
where can we accept it? Who can you tell this story to? Where can this happen?
Prof, stay with me.
Of the earth.
Stay with me. Let me quickly go to Dr. Edwin Ananienchi quickly before I let him go. I mean, Dr. Edwin Ananienchi, so I know you say you still want a clear exemption, but I just spoke to Esso, the executive secretary of the trustees, the Chamber of Corporate Trustees. They were exempted. In fact, they had an MOU. They've been invited back to the table. He was just telling us before we started that they are concerned about what happened to their bonds, etc. So they want to come back to the table to negotiate and etc. So doesn't that give you a hint there that, and as we've been explained, government has a means to pay. Just exercise your self-exemption and just move on with your life. What do you say to that? Please unmute for me. Please unmute.
I think I'll keep on stressing that self-exemption is not what we want. Otherwise, we wouldn't start anything at all.
Okay.
Because this program, when it came, has been voluntary from day one. It has been voluntary from day one. That if you wish, because it was an invitation, you were going to even offer your shares to government for government to accept or reject. So from day one, it has been voluntary. So if it's just staying out was to be equal to exemption, we wouldn't have started anything at all. So the exemption, as I've explained, is entirely different. Otherwise, why wouldn't the minister say, well, voluntary is equal to exemption, so I have exempted you? So that should tell you that there's a difference between the two policies. Yeah. Whether you want to accept or somebody want to exempt you, that for these bonds, they are not part of the exchange. That's what exemption means. For these bonds, they are not part of the exchange. For these ones, these are part of the exchange. But if you want, you can decide not to bring it. So for me, it's a simple thing that we are saying that.
So
yes.
So let me clarify that. So on the 7th.
Okay.
On the 7th, this closes. Government hasn't given you that, specific exemption that you require. What happens?
Well, we are still we haven't stopped our engagements. We will still go on with our engagements. We've done that with President before. We are hoping to meet the Chief of Staff. They called me yesterday that they have received a letter, and they were planning to meet us. Yesterday we met the chairman of the Council of State. We are hoping to meet the former President Mahama when he gets back to town. We were told he wasn't in town. So we will continue with our engagements. And then when it comes to the time that we have to physically also go to the ministry to press home our demand, we have already informed the police that from Monday on the 6th, if we haven't had any positive feedback, we'll be converging at the ministry, the old ladies and the old men, and they'll go there with their wheelchairs sit there for about 1 hour. And we are going to continue to do that every day, the working day, until our exemption is granted. So we have a plan.
Okay. I mean, that is a very clear, precise plan. Martin, as far as you're concerned, you say you're happy with this. Does that mean that no further engagements on this? You take that affirmation that the minister asserts in his letter?
Evans, we are still holding consultations, Senior and I and the group. Maybe this is a sense I'm getting. Since at the end of the program, we can also get a letter that says exempt. Why not? There's no harm in pursuing it. Though, as we are aware now, practically now we are exempt. But if there's the possibility to get a paper that uses the word exempt, I think there's no harm in pursuing it. But it's good, Evans, that the finance minister yesterday granted an interview to Daily Graphic, or let's say if it was the day before, but it was published yesterday, both in the hard copy and then the online version, where he reiterated that the existing bonds will be honored. That's it. That's the exemption practically. And I think that's what Senior and I have been saying over and over. But if the word exemption brings extra comfort, why not? We can pursue it.
Okay. Senor, explain something to me. There's a point 3B.
Yeah.
Some individual want to look at that and they panic. So explain that. However, after they said affirmation that you're free not to. And they say, however, almost like a warning, upon a successful DDEP, there will be very few of the old bonds in circulation and likely limit its tradability. What's that? What does that mean?
It's grammar. Okay, so it's a technical perspective. I don't subscribe to it. The science and the maths doesn't support it, but it's the legitimate concern of the minister.
Okay, so what is he saying there?
He's saying that I have 138 billion bonds I want to put in this program. Individual CIS are like, say, 15 or 13 billion. I think it's come down. So let's say 14 billion. And if I take 14 billion from this 138 billion, how much is left? Maybe about what?
In excess of 120 billion.
124 is actually left. All right, 124 billion. So now we have 124 billion of the new bonds that are traded. Now the old bonds, 14 billion, may be a bit isolated on the market because they may not be too much. Since when the 14 billion becomes small?
Well, if you compare it to 124.
But we are not trading 14 billion a day. We're not trading 138 billion a day. Look at the gift and see how much we're actually trading in a whole quarter. So what's the point? Then the other thing you have to realize is that this paper, one has stronger legal standing than the new paper. The second thing you also have to realize is that this paper, our old papers or the old bonds, actually have higher yields, averaging, let's say, 20% per year, split into 2 coupons every year. You sitting here, let me call any driver and ask the person, when you are going to get 20%, you're going to get what?
10%.
Which one will you take? Cameraman, I beg you, which one will you take? You're not a finance man. 10 and 20%. Which one will you take? I mean, this one's not rocket science.
Especially when there's no punitive sanctions for taking the 20.
There's nothing. So I don't want anybody to fear, but there are rational decisions that can be made. To be fair. All right? You take a collective investment scheme. You want to have different options on the market because right now, practically, there are 2 categories of bonds. Old bonds and new bonds.
Yeah.
All right? Now, some people will say, okay, maybe I want to hedge my level of liquidity risk. So maybe I want to take a bit of this, take a bit of that. So some people may want options, which is not a problem. But you can't tell me that the old bonds are going to be less tradable. They will become the hottest chick in town.
You explain.
They'll become Miss Ghana. The one paper that all pension funds are looking for. The one paper that any individual investor is looking for, any corporate investor is looking for. That's what people would want. The reason why the arguments that the minister has, or the finance team have, which I can connect to, is the concern that the banks, who are maybe the largest volume drivers, are going to not touch this one because Bank of Ghana has 100% risk this bond. And that fits into what Bokwin said about the Bank of Ghana. The right time will come. I think the Bank of Ghana should get ready to start having some serious answers. That act of Bank of Ghana trying to 100% risk the old bonds for only banks is in itself illegal.
So in other words,
it's not founded in finance.
If I was buying it through my banks, the time becoming my banks will say they will not fasten the purchase of
the bank
trading of bank.
No, the bank can continue to do that for you because they are not holding it.
Okay.
It means that the bank cannot add it to its capital because it will be like zero.
Okay.
But for you, it's full value because government is still paying. Banks can invest in it, but usually for capital adequacy. They'll have because it's just a
so they can touch it. Okay.
So they are worried about that volume going, but it's not a bad volume gone, because you have the pension funds who are chasing the money. They are chasing that bond every day. You have individuals like you and me. Today we invest somewhere, we get some money. Maybe we get a salary. We take a portion of our salary. We want to buy a bond.
Yeah.
We want a higher returning bond.
Yeah.
You are a ground man like me.
Yeah.
Are you staying at Accra just because of the sea?
No, because what you're saying is that 20% will still be trading against the 10%.
So the problem, look, the real problem that maybe people are not saying is that the market people are rather worried that you have a 20% paper, and then you have a 10% paper, and a 9% paper. Now, if a new investor is coming,
which one would you
take?
We
will use the 20% paper as the benchmark. When you use that as the benchmark, all the other lower coupon papers, the value will crash.
Let me get
it will crash.
Let me give a final
front down.
Let me get a final word to Prof. Prof, you have the final word. So this is where we are. How do we get to the 7th of February and get closure to the debt exchange program, which is a prerequisite for an executive board approval in March? Please unmute for me.
Yes, actually, yes, I've unmuted, yeah. Can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
Yeah, so actually, time is not on our side. You look at our international reserves, and you know that time is not on our side.
Yeah, yesterday the BOG governor says it's just over $2 billion.
Yeah, probably if you look at it in terms of number of import cover. In fact, if you look at it on net basis, probably it's quite serious.
He mentioned net. The net is just over $2 billion.
Yeah. Yeah, the fault is not from individual bondholders. It's the approach the Ministry of Finance has adopted, okay, in this whole preemptive debt restructuring arrangement. But this is where I'm going to come from. You see, like Dr. Duanani entry said, right, we cannot discount a certain perceived risk, elevated risk, with holding on to the old bonds by not accepting the new one. We cannot. Let's not discount that in that modeling. But you see, where I come in is that it will be too hard for government to bear, okay, to say they are going to default because you didn't sign up. You don't want to have that headache. You understand that? And I don't think that and I see that the individual bondholders are resolute. Individual bondholders are going to say that this is Ghana's middle class, right? And the government will say that, yes, I told you I can't pay, so I can't pay, go away. And then that is it. When you have Christian Council who are on board, the MPP as a party who they have spoken, the Catholic bishops have spoken, the chiefs have spoken, the illiterate association, they've spoken, our market women have spoken. Please, it's too much for the finance minister alone to say, I'm going to have my way. I hope you understand that.
Yeah.
Because Ghana is bigger than an individual. Okay, so it's not like somebody can just put the country in his pockets and say that I'm going to do it this way. So that is where the challenge is. It's harder on the part of government to say, I'm going to default because you didn't sign up than the other way around. You understand that? But the other issue is to also look at this within the broader context of the debt restructuring. That the Minister of Finance officially comes out to say individual bondholders are excluded. what would that mean for individual bondholders with our Euro bonds? Is that okay? What would that mean for individual bondholders who are offshore and the rest of them, okay? And so I'm sure the finance minister is looking at the dynamics, and probably I'm sure he would have wished that he could just issue a statement.
Exactly.
But what would that mean?
Yeah.
What would that mean?
In finance, we'll refer to that to the market signaling.
Yeah.
So what kind of signals are you really sending to the
If you
market?
say that. So you rather not say it.
Look,
say it
let
indirectly.
me be honest with you.
I have this 30 seconds.
Ken Oforiatta has managed this, tactically, and I think I have to give him credit for it. It's just that we are woke. We know what we are about. To individual bondholders there, I think the finance minister is clearly on your side. For the first time, he singled you out to reassure you that you are free not to participate. He's been out there yesterday to let you know that there will be no punitive action against you, and he will honor his obligations to you. Ghana will honor its obligations to you. There's nothing to fret. The new offer will come on Thursday. We'll review it, make all the technical analysis, give you visibility so informed decisions can be made. Till then, till any alternative option, please, just self-exempt.
Senor, thank you very much. Martin, thank you very much. Prof, always a delight talking to you, and I really like your analogy of the regulator drinking champagne with the politician. Dr. Edu Ananientwi, fantastic always talking to you, and I wish you all the best in your protest to get that explicit exemption. Look, on Thursday when this document finally comes out, we'll return, Senor, everybody else, and try and break it down. All we can do is to inform you so you can make the decision. Enjoy the rest of your evening.